Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this first ever Facebook Live Ulster Orchestra event. This is a new thing for us, so we're really grateful to you for joining us for this. We're in the Accidental Theatre in Belfast for this, ahead of our season concert tomorrow night in the Ulster Hall, 7:45. Virtuosic storytellers, and I'm absolutely delighted that the composer of one of the pieces tomorrow night, Dani Howard, is with us tonight. Hello, Dani.
Hi.
So our programme for tomorrow centres around your new fantastic Trombone Concerto, which is, I think it's only the second performance.
Second performance.
And comes hot on the heels of your award from the Royal Philharmonic Society.
Yes.
For the composition. Just tell us a bit about how that award came about and the buzz around it and what it means for you to get recognition in that way.
Well, I've still only not really come down off the high of it. It was only last week. Just an incredible evening and a total surprise. It's an event I've been going to watch for many years, probably 7-8 years or so. Always wanted to be nominated since the first time I went, and this is the first time I've been nominated in any category, and couldn't believe that this piece won. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, so are we, because the timing couldn't be better for us.
Exactly.
It's just brilliant to be part of something that's kind of live and of now, and especially post everything that everyone's been through in the last 18 months. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the piece later on, but just tell us a bit more about you as composer, how you've got to this point, what your journey has been from early student time to that moment, I guess, when you thought, I'm going to be a composer, and I am a composer. This is me. This is what I do.
Yeah. So I mean, I always loved music. Started drum kit, my first instrument, at age 5, and then learned piano and cello, and had a wonderful cello teacher in Hong Kong, which is where I grew up, and studied with him from age 10 to 18. And that really made me fall in love with classical music, because alongside that I was also playing guitar and drums in bands, and I loved the pop music world. But he really made me fall in love with classical music. And I didn't want to be a cellist. I didn't like practicing. I didn't like performing either. So I thought, why would I practice if I don't like the performing aspect either? And I kept wanting to learn different instruments. So I wanted to learn harp and just anything. I got so curious and couldn't focus on one instrument, which I've actually noticed is a trait with a lot of composers. They say they play 5 instruments, none of them very well, and just...
Conductors too.
Exactly. But actually, I think that was a blessing in disguise. And so I moved to London at 18 to study composition at the Royal College. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into at the time. I thought, this sounds like something I really like, but I didn't think you could really make a career out of it, but I thought maybe I don't need to know just yet. Maybe this will lead me to what I want. And while I was studying, I just absolutely fell in love with concert music. I had ideas, maybe I'd want to be a film composer or something else, but actually I loved writing concert music, and I made a lot of incredible friends there that actually it's been through that, my friends and colleagues who are now in all sorts of groups performing around the country and the world, that's really helped my career writing pieces for friends. And bit by bit I got my first orchestral commission with an orchestra called Orchestra Vitae in London. They're a professional orchestra that has 3 concerts a year, and it was wonderful. It was their first commission they'd ever put on, and I was always scared to write for orchestra before that. I didn't write a single orchestral piece in my whole studies, even though we were encouraged to. I avoided it. I was too terrified. And as soon as I did my first one, I kind of fell in love with it and thought, oh my gosh, you can't really beat this. So since then, I've had a few wonderful opportunities with orchestra, and now that's just, I love it.
Fantastic. I really like that idea of composing for friends. And I suppose there's something that sort of goes back through history, where there's been that close collaboration between performer and composer, patron and composer, that if it's something that emerges organically out of a personal relationship.
Exactly.
How nice that is, and what kind of ideal, I suppose.
It's more fun when you're writing as well. If you know that person's character, you know you know, you're obviously friends, so you know the type of music they like, the type of things they don't like. They'll say, oh, don't do this or do this, and not that you necessarily have to listen to every single thing, but you keep that in mind, their character, because everyone plays differently. So yeah, I love it.
It kind of positions tomorrow night's piece, the Trombone Concerto, in that great lineage, I think. So tell us about Peter Moore and how the commission for that piece came about. Was that as a result directly of the relationship between you and Peter, or was it something that came as an invitation for a straight commission?
Well, it was a bit of a combination. So Peter and I had met. We had a mutual friend. We'd met when the first year that I moved to London, but very briefly. We both have a very good mutual friend, and basically we'd met a few times over the years, and it got to a point where I think he reached out to me because he was looking to do more solo recitals, and we decided to go for a coffee meeting that turned into a drinks meeting, and we'd gotten very, very well, and we're just chatting about loads of different ideas, maybe a solo piece with visuals or something a bit different, and I did kind of just put it out there because in my mind, in the future, I was thinking about, well, in the future, I said, but would you want a concerto, just out of interest? Because I'd never written a concerto. I was kind of itching to write a concerto, and I thought that might actually be a really nice first one, because, you know, a violin or a piano one would have terrified me as the first concerto. And so I just kind of put it out there, and he said, well, obviously that would be incredible. And a few weeks later, I had a concert with the Liverpool Phil, a commission that they'd given me, and they seemed really pleased with the piece. That they said, oh, do you have any other ideas? So then I immediately thought, well, a trombone concerto. It was just fresh in my mind. And they immediately jumped on the idea and said, yep, we'll do it. And yeah, so that's how that came about. It was a bit of a combination.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's really nice. And so the piece itself follows the sort of the normal trajectory, I suppose, of fast, slow, fast with a substantial cadenza.
Yeah.
Just kind of guide us through the pathway of that piece.
Yeah.
And perhaps why you made some of the decisions that you did to shape it in the way that you did.
Well, I definitely wrote it very much for him as a player, and it was odd because there are a lot of things in my music before. It did almost change me as a composer as well, because I tend to try and avoid kind of straight up melodies and try hide things in more textural ways, but I knew having a soloist, it was going to be important, something that Pete had said he particularly likes, and I knew from what everyone said what his particular strength is his beautiful sound, which is really phenomenal. And so I thought, you know, while I was wanting to do, you know, certain fast things, I just knew that there needed to be lots of expressive moments that could just have his sound. So he influenced the piece hugely, as well as his ability for long phrases. He can hold his breath a lot longer than most people, and so while I do want the piece to have longevity for people afterwards, but, you know, they might need 2 breaths when he has it in one. But in terms of the structure of the piece, I kind of thought, I don't feel I'm old enough to, or maybe mature enough to kind of say, no, I don't think a concerto should be done this way, I think it should be done this way. I feel like I love that structure, the way it works in the 3 movements. I love something that kind of brings you in a medium way. I love that slow movement, and I do like ending pieces with a bit of a I don't know why, and it's not all my pieces do that, but I felt with the Trombone Concerto, especially with what it was about, needed to be like that. So I thought, unless I have a good reason to do a different structure, I'd like to do it this way. And something that very early on we talked about was that he loves pieces that feature brass, and I thought, it's a trombone concerto, let's feature the brass. So I had this idea to originally it was to have the strings tacit for the second movement, but in the end, they're tacit for most of the movement, but they do come in at the very end for the last minute and a half, 2 minutes. So that was one of the initial ideas structurally as to what was going to happen. Mm. Yeah.
I'm kind of attracted to it. My own personal history is in brass. I was in the orchestra as a trumpet player and grew up through that British brass band tradition. Yeah. So I suppose I was particularly attracted by the idea of a British composer writing for a British brass playing soloist, because it's a continuation of that long and glorious history of brass band musicians taking up orchestral positions.
Exactly.
And you look around the London orchestras, and there's such a sort of unbelievable representation. You can sort of chart the history back through bands of all of those principal players, many of whom have very strong brass band links.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that kind of continuation. And I think key to, if there's one thing that the brass band tradition gives you, it's that sense of lyricism, which is so abundantly present in Pete's playing. Yeah. I listened to a bit of the rehearsal this afternoon and just struck by, as you say, that the sound is just incredible. It's on a par with any kind of singer or a cellist, any of those instruments where lyricism and vocalizing are really, really crucial. Exactly. And that comes out so strongly in your piece.
It had to, but I also thought it is a concerto and he can do the fast things as well, and I wanted to challenge myself that way. So it's got a bit of both, but it definitely errs on the side of letting people enjoy his sound.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about what you want people to take away from this piece, what you were trying to communicate. I mean, we talked a little bit before we came on air about the last 18 months and writing in lockdown and what we've all kind of been through. Yeah. And whether this piece is if not a summation, then certainly a product of that time. Yeah,
so the concert was postponed twice, not by too much, just by a month and then another 2 months.
The premiere concert.
The premiere concert. But so the whole piece was written during the lockdown. And my main goal, I don't like to tell people what to think when they're listening to pieces, because I think, people will think what they think and you have no say over that. But what I did want to create an atmosphere of emotionally was something of extreme positivity. I just thought this is going to be one of the first concerts. I did know that because we were several months into the pandemic. I could really see that this was going to be one of the early concerts, live concert experiences for a lot of people. And so my main goal was mainly for the audience, but it was also for me while I was writing, because it was kind of my only way to stay positive was to, I didn't want to go too dark. And to be honest, the second movement is very emotional, and actually that took a lot out of me. It is much more kind of cyclic, and it's called Ruminations, and it's about thinking things over and over and over. But basically my main goal was to create explosive, positivity and lightness. So the idea behind the piece is someone basically uncovering their own confidence and their own ability to do something great. And so it's kind of starts in a very medium way where the soloist is kind of, just getting about their daily life, life is normal, fine. And then they kind of realize, actually, maybe I do have something to offer. And then there's this second movement, which is a lot more kind of introspective of kind of figuring yourself out, which I think we all kind of did a bit to an extent in this 18 months.
Absolutely.
And then the last movement is just kind of absolute confidence. And it starts with the trombone kind of playing on two planes. They've got things in the upper register and things in the lower register. And in my mind, that was the kind of angel and devil on your shoulder of, when you do get confident, and then you have that voice being like, what do you think you're doing? And then that, and you hear a lot of that in the third movement, but you kind of break through it, and it's just extremely confident and explosive and hopefully positive, and hopefully people feel better after listening to the piece than they did before.
I'm sure they will. I felt better just at 2:05, having heard 5 minutes of the rehearsal this afternoon. I went out onto Howard Street with a spring in my step today, so I'm certain that's what people are going to take away. So what happens next for you after this week? What's on the laptop at the moment?
Well, a few things. I'm nearly finishing a new commission with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, which is really exciting. That's happening next February for their 75th anniversary at the Royal Festival Hall. So that's really, really exciting. It's going well. I'm right in the thick of it. It's a few weeks left, but it's going. That's my current piece, and then also something for Britain Symphonia, which is very exciting. And then I have a few premieres of pieces I've finished recently with a saxophone quartet and a trio with mezzo-soprano in April, and one more concert of this in the diary, the London premiere with Pete's Orchestra,
With the
London
LSO.
Symphony.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting, obviously.
It seems like it's a great time to be a composer.
Yeah.
There seems to be just an appetite for a certain kind of brand of music which is engaging and emotional and has a sort of punch to it and an immediacy to it. And I think of your music and perhaps a few others of composers who are around at the moment. There does seem to be a real just thirst and energy for new music, which feels really, really exciting.
It's exciting. It goes against what everyone told me. Don't be a composer. What are you doing? Bad life decision. But no, I'm really pleased. And there were just so many groups very keen to program and commission and do repeat performances, which is something as a composer is, you shouldn't always just be about the premiere. It's incredible that, you spend months working on a piece, that it doesn't just last that duration. And, thanks to you for putting it on tomorrow and any other orchestra that takes on second performances, third, fourth, that's as it should be, I believe.
Definitely, yeah. And certainly this piece, beyond doubt, should find its place in the repertoire and even beyond Pete's time with it. I'd love to see it as part of the repertoire in 50 years to come. So
it'd be amazing. Let's see.
Dani, this has been brilliant. Thank you ever so much indeed for this chat. Hope you enjoy the show tomorrow.
Yes.
We're all really looking forward to it. There are still tickets available. Have a look on the Ulster Orchestra website. Really looking forward to tomorrow night's performance. Hope to see lots of you there. It's a really, really attractive programme, virtuosic storytellers, programme of Tchaikovsky's Storm, Dani's piece, and the wonderful, colourful, and trombone solo featuring, very briefly, Rimsky-Korsakov, Scheherazade. So a real riot of fun and colour and storytelling in prospect. Hope you can join us at the Ulster Hall for that tomorrow night, Thursday night, 7:45 at the Ulster Hall. Hopefully see you there. Dani, thanks again.
Thanks very much.